Welcome to everyone to a very special conversation today. For those of you that might not know me, and I can't imagine there's a whole lot of you, my name is Russell Beaton. I'm the president of the Irish Dance Teachers Association North America until May 1st of 2021. And one of the things that I decided I needed to do was to capture in recording a conversation with one of the founding members of the IDTANA, who has graciously agreed to be with us today. So please welcome to our platform here today, Anna Conahan O'Sullivan. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you for doing
So
that.
Anna O'Sullivan, one of the things that we always talk about is what we're doing, the dancing and whatever the case may be. But when you say to somebody, oh, that person is from such a place or whatever, they often don't know anything. So I wanted to go back to like the early days. I wanted to go back to your family and why they were in Glasgow and things like that. So tell us a little bit about your family and what brought a rather Irishy family to Glasgow, Scotland.
Okay. I'll start at the beginning. My mom and dad are both Donegal, born and bred. My mom came to America when she was young. She became an American citizen, but went back and married my father. And they moved to Glasgow because there was no work in Ireland, especially in the 26 counties. They lived in Edinburgh. My sister Mary was born there, and my sister Sheila. Then they moved to Glasgow, and I was born in Glasgow, so I belong to Glasgow.
You do indeed. My
brothers were born there as well. We spoke very little. It was like a mixture of English and Irish in the house constant. The rosary was constantly in English or in Irish, and all the trimmings were in Irish, as they say, the trimmings. And so we really learned to speak the Gaelic language because Donegal Gaelic was what my mum and dad spoke. Then when we go to Ireland every summer, it would be easier for us to talk in Gaelic to my cousins and grandma. Anyway, the war came. I was born during the war, and my two sisters were in Ireland because my mum didn't want us in Glasgow because of the bombings. So anyway, lo and behold, my sister Mary, who was the oldest, got polio. And we were all brought back to Glasgow in, I want to say 1944. And Mary didn't walk. And they told my mother she wouldn't walk. And then my mother wouldn't accept no for an answer.
Now we know where you get that from, Anna.
Yes, and, she worked, she brought people in, helped her. And lo and behold, my sister did. And the doctors told her they should get her in some kind of dance. So being Irish dancing. So my uncle brought Mary to a dancing school. And I went along. I was only small. I was maybe 4. And I listened and I didn't like it. So I said, no, I didn't want to do Irish dancing. So then my mother said she would send us to someplace else because she wanted me kind of to be in on it. Well, in September of 1946, I joined the Bridie McGady School of Irish Dancing. I was with Bridie. I was actually 4.5 years old. I was with Bridie until Bridie got married and gave up the school. And there's a lot of prominent ones that did dance for Bridie who are still around, and some of them are Kogol teachers.
All right.
Claire and Maureen, her sister Maureen, and Myrna McLaughlin, who taught Terry Gillen. I danced with Myrna in the All Irelands. So, I mean, we go back a long way. So anyway, I went to Bridie. I loved it. And I was sent with my sister for company because we had to take a tram car.
All right.
Tram cars there to the class and then back again. And I was company for Mary. Well, I'm still at it, and God rest my sister didn't stick after Bridie finished. She gave it up altogether.
Did the dancing help her at all in terms of with the walking and that kind of stuff?
Yes, it did, and it was a great exercise, and the doctor was thrilled that she was doing it. I remember bits and pieces of it because at that point I was into the dancing, and of course I was interested in me in dancing, and I have pictures of actually us at the class with the big pictures of the school and Bridie and a lot of that. So anyway, I didn't know where to go. Charlie was just starting his class then. And
that's Charlie Kelly, right?
Charlie Kelly.
Yeah.
I need to mention those. You need to remind me. She heard that Frances Teese, whom I had seen because I danced my first feis under Bridie, and my adjudicator was the infamous Nellie Sweeney.
Oh, I've heard the name. Yes.
And Nellie was a humdinger, and she gave me a special medal because she thought it wasn't fair to take. What I can remember being told wasn't fair to take the first. See, no matter how many was in the competition, there was one first, one second, one third.
Right.
And to take it away, and it was under 7, and I was only like just turning 5. So she sent me a special medal. She said, "I'll send you a special medal from Derry," and she did. So through the dance and through the feis, we learned about Frances, and Frances was going to open class, Frances Teese. And I went to Frances. I went to Frances when I was about 8, just going on 9, and was with Frances. Frances got married. I was one of her bridesmaids. And Frances got married to a policeman and gave up the dancing as well.
Oh, my.
So I said, I'm not giving up. I don't care where I'm going. I knew Charlie. I knew when Bridie gave up, Patsy, her name was Smith, Patsy Kerr, who's Cogwall now, went to Charlie, and so did Pauline, and so did Eric Hughes, a whole bunch of them. And so I knew they were there, and they were older than me. So I went to Charlie when I was about maybe 13. I won the Newcastle St. Patrick's Feis, the first ever feis held in Newcastle on Tyne. I won the under-12 championship there. And I wasn't even in the hall because I didn't think I was winning, and they were going to the fairground, and I wanted to go to the fairground. So I went to the fairground.
You're going to have a better day one way or the other, right?
So they had to put off the presentation until such time so they gave it to me the next day. And I went on, no matter what it is, I just love dancing.
Right, exactly.
My father taught me to do an old-time waltz in our house in Glasgow. He'd moved back the rug, and the Scottish country dance music was on every Saturday night. And we only could get radio air sometimes. So when the Scottish, they would play a waltz, my dad taught us how to do a waltz.
Wonderful. That's
and
great.
Then we learned what they call here, shoe the donkey.
Right, yeah. The Varsuviana.
Varsuviana. And then, well, they called it the shoe the donkey. That was the easiest way to learn it, and he taught us the song. And my mum and dad were great dancers. And I found that out in latter years. Great dancers. They could do all the house dances around Donegal. And I guess it's in our blood.
Absolutely, yeah. Dad
was working in Glasgow. He was as they'd say then, a navvy. He was construction. And Mum, it was expensive because my brother Dennis that came after me, she kind of started him with the fiddle, and Dennis didn't like it. So Dennis loved his football. Dennis went on to be a Glasgow Celtic player. He played football for the famous Glasgow Celtic for 7 years. He was a goalie. He is noted for having saved 2 penalties in one game against the rivals Glasgow Rangers.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
He's like a god in Glasgow. You go to town with him and people will say, that's Dennis Conaghan. That's Dennis Conaghan. And they'll stop him and they'll ask him for his autograph. My younger brother came along much later, and he didn't dance, but he played football too off and on. And we went to the All Ireland. We were the first Scottish team from Glasgow. There was only 2 schools. In the end, it was Frances Teese and Peggy O'Neill. No, right. There was Peggy McGady, Peggy O'Neill. Frances Teese, Peggy O'Neill. Charlie Kelly and Peggy O'Neill. There wasn't any other schools. That was the limit. We had 1 feis a year. That was the Glasgow Fish. That's why Francis brought us to Newcastle for exposure.
Sure, exactly.
That's how the kids learned. That's how we learned, and we became great friends. I still have friends that I'm on Facebook with. Barbara Slater stayed in her house. She stayed in our house. Maureen Granger was a girl. She stayed in our house. The Lord of Mercy and Maureen. Kathleen Munnett. There's so many. The memories of Newcastle was the best run fish. It was fabulous. So you build up the friendships through.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, you build up those friendships and they never die. And that's what I told kids. I started teaching 60 years this September.
Oh my goodness, wow.
60 years. Actually, it was August because the school year starts in August back there. So I started teaching on my own. And I mean, I told Charlie, and he says, whatever you want, Anna, you do. But Charlie was a character. Charlie wasn't tall, but by God did he speak. And I was tired. I was way over Charlie. And when we go to practice, we practice in this little room. And there was a table at the end. You used to stand on the table when we were doing our 12 hands. You're out of line there, your feet are wrong there, you do this there. Never really, if he ever shouted, you knew you were really in trouble.
Right.
But he had such a way with him. He was from County Antrim.
All right.
Yeah. Charlie, his mom was actually from County Antrim. And that's where his parents were from. And there's pictures home. Owen Colley has a lot of pictures and a lot of stuff from way back then. I have pictures too. Owen was in the minor teams with Charlie when I was in the senior teams.
Oh, right. Okay.
And we went to the All-Ireland and we didn't win the first year. So we swore on a stack of Bibles we were going to win the next year. So the next year we did. We got second. We got second to Anna McCoy's team.
Ah, that's a good team to get second to.
Yeah, they were well known, and everybody. I mean,
sure.
I mean, God rest Little McNiff and Peter used to go to visit Anna when they were in Ireland. I met Cyril and Peter at an All Ireland in the Mansion House in Dublin before I came out here.
Ah.
I remember somebody saying they're from America. And of course I looked around at nosy me. And I looked, and who was sitting on the chair but Mary Bastis changing her shoes. And I remember I don't know who it was it Anna McCoy or was it Francis or somebody? And or Charlie, and he said, oh, they're American, they're Yankees. That's what we call them Yankees. And I found out later that Cyril and Peter left Ireland and went, because there was no world.
Right, yeah, it hadn't happened yet. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
1959, 1960.
Sure.
Anyway, I have pictures of my first dancers. And in 62, I took a team to the Newcastle Fish, a choreography, and they got second. I was thrilled, over the moon, and jumping over Mars at the same time.
Absolutely.
And came back. My sister went home in 62 after she got married, and I said, oh, I might like to go to America, So, lo and behold, next thing I get, here's your passage, you want to come? So in 63, I came out here.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I came out. You're going to laugh at this. I said, all right, I'll go for a year. We'll get a job. I'll pay back my fare. And then I'll have enjoyed it. I'll have seen all my aunts, all my cousins, everybody like that, uncles, everybody. And a year later, I was married.
You didn't waste any time there, Anna, did you?
I met John. And the funny part is John never danced a step in his life. John wouldn't even do an old-time waltz with you.
Oh, yeah. How did you meet John?
John's brother Jimmy was actually married to my sister Mary.
Ah, okay.
So you had two brothers married to two sisters.
Oh my goodness.
There's a bunch of them at the airport. Oh God, they're all dead and gone now. Russell, there was John, there was my sister-in-law Sheila, Michael's wife, my niece Mary Pat, Jimmy and Mary and me. And I landed in the month of October in a big heavy green suit and a hat on my head.
All right.
and the sweat was blinding me. I couldn't wait to get to go. It was so hot that September.
Absolutely.
So, but I don't know if you have any questions you want from me from my beginning days.
Yeah, I have a couple.
Right.
I've seen it. I saw a video recently that was on Facebook of Charlie Kelly teaching his class, but in a very special section of Glasgow. That was apparently where a lot of the Irish lived. Did the Irish in Glasgow live in a particular part of the city? Was it like an Irish enclave, or was it what was it like living as Irish in Glasgow?
It was tough. It was tough, first of all, to be Irish, and it was doubly tough if you were an Irish Catholic.
Ah, right.
An Irish Catholic, because don't forget, hundreds of years ago, Scotland was 100% Catholic. And then at the time of the Reformation, it came apart and Protestants didn't like. And then there was the Troubles in Ireland. And then there was, the whole rigmarole of history and wartime, which, thank God, I have great friends in Irish dancing. And one of them is Sally Houston, whom I danced against at the Edinburgh International Festival. She was danced with the Seven Towers of Ballymena, and we were with Charlie Kelly. So we all became friends. And I met Maureen Hall there. I met Pat Hall there. Not Pat. God, Pat, no.
Peggy McTaggart.
Peggy McTaggart.
Exactly, yeah.
Because you didn't know whether it was McTaggart Hall or Hall McTaggart. And I could take you to the two seats Peggy and Maureen sat down at the International. But getting back to the Gorbals, it's not far from where the boats came in from Derry and Belfast on the Clyde. And if you were coming, there was always somebody from your townland or the next townland over, and everybody knew everybody. And we were landed in what it was known as the toughest Irish Catholic neighbourhood in Scotland. Every street had upteen Irish families, and you would walk from one house to the other. There was no such a thing as buses or cars, walk to the neighbours, and 95% of them were Donegal.
Isn't that interesting that you have a strong emphasis from just one county? I know Owen McCauley speaks very highly of that as well.
Yes, and there was, my mother in those days, to earn more money, kept lodgers.
Oh, right.
Young lads coming from Ireland, looking to do labour work and looking for a place to stay. So my mum used to keep them. And there was a fella from County Mayo, Martin Nolan. I have his pictures home in my house with my brother Dennis. Martin was great. He used to have his mum send, you couldn't get him in Glasgow because everything was rationed. The ration in Africa was unbelievable. His mum would send fresh country eggs. And she and honest to God, however way she wrapped them and packed them, they came and there was a fresh dozen country eggs. My mom kept a lot of people, and now I see them popping up, their families popping up on Facebook.
Oh, sure.
Popping up on Facebook, this one, like there's a thing on it, the Rosses and Guidor. So I really keep in touch.
That's great.
One day, my son Dermot was looking at it and he says, Mom, you're in a picture on Facebook. And I says, what are you talking about? I looked up the picture and I went, oh my God, that's Grana O'Donnell. That's Maureen's wedding. And then I'm sitting in the very front row. And I'm still in touch with Grana. Like, he's an old, dear friend that we became friends with.
Sure.
And if you heard of it, you call them apartments here. If you heard of a flat going,
right,
you called them and you didn't call. You ran to the house and you told place going, you got to get in, go down and get it. And that's how they all became. Now, there was also St. Luke's and there was also St. Francis. But the biggest Catholic one was St. John's when I was born. Baptized, communion, confirmation, everything.
Wow.
Now
great.
It's as flat as an ice rink.
That's a shame. Yeah.
A mortal sin. I really and truly, I mean, it was just, they found a picture somebody over and they sent it, put it on Facebook and sent to me St. John's Church. We didn't call them churches. They were called chapels.
All right.
Because the church was the Church of Scottish.
Oh, right, of course, yeah. You had to be careful.
Of what's it? It was Catholic, Protestant. That was the only two definitions. And then the Jewish people, who were extremely nice and who were neighbours of ours. We had two sets of neighbours who were unbelievably nice and became great friends of my parents.
Excellent.
And you lived with them, and they loved the dancing, and they were always taking pictures, and they were always doing something.
Sure.
So that was
I do have a question for you about dancing. Yeah. I'm always curious to know. Okay, so you started dancing and you had a good experience. What were your favorite dances? Were you like a real person, or a slip jig person, or a jig person, or a hornpipe? What was your set dancing? What was the stuff that you really, really liked?
I could win any slip jig competition, any hornpipe competition, any jig competition, and a set piece competition. I couldn't win a real competition.
You're kidding. Isn't that funny?
I was not a real dancer at all. Brady always said, oh no, she's not. She'll never be a real dancer. No, you're not a real dancer. And Charlie would always go, oh, don't do the reel, for God's sake. No, do your slip jig. And I remember, I don't know who, somebody said to me, we had a school dance here one year, and I think it was Donnie and Kenny were starting to teach or something, and they said, that's how a slip jig should be danced. That's why, like, my niece, Brenda Cox, Brenda was a gorgeous, she was lovely as a real dancer, but a slip jig dancer?
Yeah.
God, you couldn't touch.
There's something very elegant about the slip jig done just right, isn't it?
The slip jig was always the ladies' dance.
Sure, yeah.
You had to be elegant, and you had to be, and there was no fancy, and you had to finish your movement. And then, now, and I have to say it, I really have to say it. Fidelma was one absolutely brilliant slip jig dancer.
But they were talking about that at her service the other day, and I guess I hadn't realized that, but they were talking about how the slip jig was absolutely her dance. Yeah, that's rather interesting.
God, I saw her dancing here. On cloud nine.
Absolutely. Now, did you have a favorite of the trad sets? Did you do the trad sets with Charlie or with Francis?
We didn't learn any contemporary sets until we had every one of our trad sets known.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
No, you weren't allowed to. And I learned other ones, but my favorite, and the one that I became, they know, when I go to Newcastle, they say, are you still doing it? Yeah, I still do. I love it. Planksy Davis.
Oh, right. Okay.
I loved
Really?
Davis.
Yeah.
I still to this day love Planksy Davis.
Wow, very good. And do you find that the trad sets are helpful in terms of learning how to dance hard shoe dancing and things like that? Is there something special about them?
No. If you cannot do the trad sets, it's twice as hard. Any of the jig sets is twice as hard to learn how to do a jig. So hornpipe, there's a difference when you're doing, like, you can hear Deirdre drums and Teresa drums into them. Listen to this, and they'll do it, and they'll go, now close your eyes and listen to this, and they'll go, oh yeah. They can hear the difference. So they're teaching, they have all the trad sets and they're working on them. And they're doing good. They're doing very good. And I think you should learn the trad set. If you learn the trad sets, it's so easy to teach. Then
I would agree with you. That's been my experience as well. Yeah. The rhythm and the sound and everything, and the placement and all that kind of good stuff is just so important.
And if you noticed on Charlie's tape the other day, Owen sent it to me, and then Jenny McArdle sent it to me. I was absolutely thrilled with it. Did you see his feet?
Absolutely.
And his toes, and then hop back, and he was so, when he was teaching the little ones, and then if he had problems, he'd call them, like the big ones.
Sure. Yeah.
Then decide to make sure they know the step, and he would put them in. Oh my God, yeah. I remember Kathleen McLaughlin of the famous McLaughlin School in Glasgow. She was a minor when I was a senior.
All right, yeah.
Patience in the time. Look at what they've done today.
Exactly.
And Owen taught for years.
Absolutely.
He was a minor when I was a senior.
Sure. Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned choreography, but I'm assuming that you also, in the schools, you also did the Cayley dancing, whether it be the 4 hands or the 6 hands or the 8 hands. Did you enjoy doing the Cayley dancing as well?
Loved it. Plus, every Saturday night and every Sunday night from 7:30 till about 10:30, 11 o'clock was definitely the end of it. Went to the Cayley.
Ah.
you went to an actual ceilidh. There was one over, it was a nice little bit away, and my dad used to take me, and he used to work on there on the door on the committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned all my dances before there was nearly a book written.
Right.
And we did them all. And then the Gaelic League dances taught in both halls. And it was just unbelievable. The ceilidhs, and you learned them. And then they'd say, oh, let's try another one. Let's do one of the other ones. Like, what hurts me is, and I know there's ones in Glasgow, remember them, and I wish I just could get a hold of them. So many forehand jigs. Like, we have one forehand jig, you was abandoned.
Right.
There's so many other dances that we need to incorporate.
Preserve, yeah, exactly.
We've got to preserve them. Like, we had forehand jigs, we had dances out, ceilidh dances out there was. And then my husband being from Cork, I learned the Borland set, then we learned the Ginny, and all his brothers and sisters were great dancers, great set dancers.
The other thing is, I know you and I have talked about this, and I've actually danced to some of them with you. You used to do other dances that were set like the Pride of Erin and things of that nature. There was a ton of dances that we've kind of lost touch with because they're not, quote, competition dances, they're social dances.
I remember one year at a regional, it must have been a regional, God rest, Peggy O'Neill was out the back. And she says, Anne, I have a question to ask you. And I said, yeah. And we were talking. And she says, do you remember the Pride of Erin? I says, yeah. She says, there's a little bit in it, and I just want to make sure that, I'm doing it right. So sure enough, I said, okay, and I danced it. And she goes, oh boy, you really do remember. I said, oh yeah. I says, like, the Pride of Erin waltz was it. You didn't do the Pride of Erin waltzes at a ceilidh.
Ah, right. Okay.
Because there was the ceilidh and there was the modern. Okay.
The contemporary dancing.
Quick steps, foxtrots, whatever was going. So, and they always would put in the Pride of Erin waltz. I wish you got, so many.
Stack of barley and all that sort of thing. Yeah, yeah.
And shoe the donkey.
Mm-hmm.
All
of which are great dances. They really are.
And
I remember you dragging me on the floor to teach me the Pride of Erin waltz one time, and we figured it out eventually, and we didn't make complete fools of ourselves. But it was a learning experience. It was really cool.
And it's all Irish music that's played to it.
Absolutely.
And it was brilliant. And you just you were always, and everybody got up. Whether you had, if it was two girls, you got up and you danced. Everybody danced those dances to learn them.
Absolutely.
And yes, Russell, I've forgotten a lot. But things that stick with you, and then all of a sudden something will sting you and you'll come right back.
Exactly.
And the whole dance comes back to you.
I had a question about music. I mean, obviously, for Irish dancing, we prefer what we call Irish music. Although I remember when I was growing up, hearing the recordings of people like Jimmy Shand and some of the other Scottish musicians. And I thought they were absolutely amazing. They had a lovely, unusual sound because the ceilidh was so big sound and whatever. And yet you'd play that music for Irish teachers and they'd be thumbing their nose at them and whatever. What was the music like for dancing in Glasgow when you would dance at the feshes or at the ceilidhs?
At the Glasgow feshes, Jimmy McHugh, who is Anne McHugh is a Kogol teacher who danced for Peggy. She was married to Jimmy. Jimmy, brilliant player. I have him actually on tape. He taped tapes for me before I came out here with all the dances. And it was unbelievable. They had the top musicians like Donald O'Donnell from Running Fast, Donald Bell. I'm giving the Irish names because that's what we called them.
Exactly, yes.
I would never call him Donald O'Donnell. I wouldn't know who you were talking about. But if I say, if somebody said to me, you remember Donald Bell? Oh, yes, he used to play the fiddle.
Right, exactly.
I'll tell you what we did start in Glasgow. Once a year was a Scottish and Irish ceilidh.
Ah.
And we had a Scottish band and an Irish ceilidh band, the two bands. And we alternated dances. And we learned Irish country dancing. And they learned how you say the easier ones, like Siege of Venice or the Waltz of Limerick.
Haymaker's Jig and all that kind of thing, right? Exactly.
I mean, we weren't getting up to learn the Eight Some Reel or something, but we learned the Dashing White Sergeant.
Absolutely. The Flowers of Edinburgh.
I love that dance. I love that dance.
Exactly.
In fact, we were taught them in school.
Oh, right. Okay.
We were
Yeah.
secondary school, part of our gym class. And my friend in school was a Highland dancer from the island of South Uist. And she was big into the Highland. And we were always partners. And the teacher would pick us to show them how to do so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, no, you just brought that memory back to me.
I remember when you and I and Joan McNiff-Cass were hired to do a fesh in Florida many years ago, and it was at a Highland Games. And you kept telling me you felt like you had gone back in time, deja vu, because there was you and I with the Scottish history, and Joan with the Northern Ireland history, and we were in the middle of the Scottish world. It was like we had the bagpipes, and they actually sent me, because of my last name, they sent me to the Scottish dance stage because I thought that's where I should have been judging. But it was a great experience.
That was the Ocala Fesh.
Right, exactly.
I remember that fesh because very dear friends of ours had moved down to Florida, and they came to visit me at the fesh.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you and I and Joan even had haggis at that fesh. I remember that very well.
I'm not a fond lover, but I didn't want to be sounding snob. I was my record.
So anyway, let's make a little switch back to the United States.
Yes, I'll come back to America.
So you came to the United States, and your knight in shining armor was waiting for you apparently at the airport. Little did you know, but then lo and behold, so you got married, and you set up family. Where were you living? Where were you in? What area were you in?
My sister was living in the Bronx, and I was living in the Bronx too. I started teaching in November of '63. I came in October, and I started. I actually went to see a show in Manhattan Center, the Night of Shamrocks. It was always the night before election night. And my sister warned me, she says, "No, Anna, you're not going to see dancing like you saw back in America, or back in Scotland." I went, "Oh." And she says, "Whatever you do, hold your temper." So I went down anyway, and there was dancers there, and my sister, oh God, Mary Cox was with me, and a whole bunch of them, Kathleen and John was there, and I was sitting there, we were watching them all, and then they had the Irish dancers come out, and I thought, oh. And it was like the little tutu skirts and the steel taps and the hair up and the frills.
And the big bows.
And I kind of went, and Mary goes to me, "Take it easy, Anna, take it easy." And sure enough, I said, "Is there any more dancers coming?" And they go, "Yeah, hold on." And I remember they were Joey Flynn's.
Joey Flynn, right? Yeah,
right?
Dottie and Joey Flynn, right? Exactly. Yeah.
And then they had dancers later in the second half. What was his name? Lovett, Johnny Lovett.
Oh, Johnny Lovett, right? Yeah, exactly.
I'm really taking names out.
Wow, those really are a blast from the past.
But he had someone teaching with him. I think Jerry was here at the time doing.
Jerry Melville.
Jerry Melville he was here before I came, and he was kind of helping. So they were more traditional. They did. They had blue dresses and a little bit of embroidery, and they had. They did a figure that I was kind of more used to, and their tempo was a bit, but there was only one tempo here.
Yeah.
That's so you go the better.
I remember that tempo in Feshes, Anna. Yeah, you couldn't be asking for tempos; they'd be looking at you like you were crazy.
Oh, that comes later.
Yeah.
We'll talk. A lot of trouble over that. Can we take a break for 1 second?
Absolutely.